Welcome to Rediscovering Childhood, a podcast for teachers, parents, and education leaders who believe childhood should be protected, respected, and truly understood. I'm your host, Mireia Lopez, founder of Discovery Playtime, educator, and passionate advocate for play, creativity, emotional well-being, and connection. Each episode brings you thought-provoking conversations with inspiring guests from Ireland and around the world, exploring childhood, education, parenting, behaviour, emotional development, creativity, neurodiversity, and the future of learning. This podcast is here to challenge outdated thinking, spark reflection, and help us create a world where children don't just achieve, but truly thrive, while making sure we have fun along the way. Teaching has never been more emotionally demanding than it is today. Teachers are overwhelmed, children are struggling to regulate, behaviour is becoming more complex, and so many adults are trying to support emotional needs they were never actually trained to fully understand. In today's episode, we're exploring what happens when we stop asking, what is wrong with this child, and start asking, what is this child trying to communicate? Joining me today is Yvonne Power, and couldn't have a better surname, Yvonne. Director of Irish Play Therapy Community Association, accredited play therapist, parent consultant, certified SANT play therapist, training provider, clinical creative supervisor, NLP practitioner, Reiki practitioner, and Amazon #1 best-selling author. Through her work supporting children, families, therapists, and educators, Yvonne has seen firsthand the emotional realities showing up in classrooms and homes today, from burnout and dysregulation to trauma, attachment, neurodivergence, and the growing need for emotional safety and connection. This conversation today is such an important one for teachers, parents, school leaders, and anyone supporting children. We talk about why behavior is communication, what's missing in teacher training, how emotional overwhelm impacts both adults and children in the small shifts that can completely transform how children experience school and themselves in life. So if you're ever felt exhausted trying to support children, confused by behavior, or worried about the future of education, this episode will leave you feeling understood, reflective, and most importantly, hopeful. Yvonne, very welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
Great to
you.
see you.
So I always wanted to be a teacher since the day I was born, possibly. And I used to pretend play with my teddies and line them all up on the floor and teach them things and take the yellow pages, the phone numbers. Yeah. And just read numbers and just pretend teacher. I went to college. I studied primary school teaching. I became a teacher. I walked into the classroom and it was the most disappointing moment of my life. I remember putting my hands in my pockets, just trying not to cry in the classroom. It was a dream. I was warm with that dream. I'm an educator in my heart. And when I was in the classroom, it was just, don't cry yet. Just keep it together. Just keep it together. I realized I didn't actually learn anything. I knew the curriculum. I knew what I was supposed to do. But in relation to supporting myself with children who were telling me, are you here because our last teacher had to leave because we made her cry? And then when I tried to go outside, I went outside to play and create games the way I was taught in college. And then the principal said to me, we're here to learn, not to play. So I had that experience. And I think a lot of what I do comes from that experience to want to change things. And that was in Spain, by the way. But it feels like a lot of teachers today still or in survival mode. And we had this idea of what it would look like to be in the classroom. And it feels so hard to actually enjoy it because of the amount of things that we need to do and the emotional overwhelm. What is really going on?
I didn't realise that, Maria. So that's so lovely to hear. That brings the conversation to a whole deeper level, doesn't it? Because it's so close to your heart. You've been there. You've stood in the classroom. You know what we're talking about today firsthand. And I get to work with parents as a play therapist. I work with seeing children in the playroom. But ultimately, I'll work with the parents first in consultation. I get to work with teachers when I'm training. So I delivered the creative approaches to social care practice and the play therapy training for 8 years here in Ireland. And some of those trainees, a lot of those trainees are teachers. And that's where I got to see where the gaps were in their training. And I couldn't believe it because obviously I didn't realise that a lot of the content wasn't covered in their training. And teachers that were then training as play therapists were also shocked on their end, because they were like, why don't we learn this when we're training to be teachers? How do we not know this stuff when we're working with children? And, they gained so much from some of the content that we would have delivered on, or I would have delivered on the play therapy training, around attachment, around self-regulation, around the nervous system, neurodevelopment, like the emotional developmental age of a child. These things are not covered in the training for teachers. And yet they're expected to go into a classroom full of little people that are all growing and developing, and they get the content, as you say, they know what they've to deliver in the curriculum, but to actually deliver that and translate that into a classroom in the reality of lots of different personalities and presenting concerns, challenges, it's a whole different thing, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And
Yeah.
if we're not regulated ourselves, then because that's so overwhelming, how are we supposed to role model that co-regulation with our children? And then it's just, let's
Yeah.
get through today.
And we're not talking about teachers being perfect here. It's actually less about the perfection and the performance of teachers, and more about the relational connections that they're building with children. But it's not spoken about enough. And so when we look at even how we all function as human beings, I mean, we have teachers that are going in from their own lives, whatever might be going on in their own lives, but they're going into a classroom then full of children who have also come from probably a domestic violence situation that morning. There might be addiction in the family home. Who knows? We don't know what children, and often teachers will never know what a particular child has come from that morning. And so to be aware of that and the self-care that's needed for teachers to be able to sit in that. We're talking about several nervous systems in the one room, and we all get triggered by each other's nervous systems. And if we don't have awareness of that, it's going to turn into something that's like a real tornado and conflict within you, because you have this expectation that you want to get the curriculum across, and the kids need to sit quietly and learn, and yet that's not the reality. So if we can have more real conversations about what it's like to sit in a classroom with so many children with additional needs now as well. I mean, we've a much higher percentage of additional needs in classrooms now than we were ever aware of. And when I'm sitting on the other side speaking with parents are not aware either. They think that teachers are aware of all of this. They rely on teachers to highlight to them that their children has additional needs. And often if I'm sitting with a parent and I've picked up on a child's sensory profile, and I'm thinking there's a real challenge here, we need to look into this, one of the first things they can say sometimes is that, no, the teacher hasn't said anything about that. The teacher never told me that they might be struggling with that. And so they're very reliant on the teacher to inform them that their child may have additional needs, when really that's not in a teacher's remit. They're not always aware of it. It depends on their background, their experience, but it's definitely not included in their training. So the training structure for teachers desperately needs to change to evolve what the needs are today in the classrooms, and that hasn't happened yet.
What would you add in their training? What are the things that you think would be really helpful and practical to have?
I think the most important things for teachers to be aware of is child developmental stages, so they can actually identify the emotional developmental age of a child that's presenting to them in the classroom. Trauma-informed module, which informs them about the behaviours. What are they communicating?
This is about empathy, really, isn't it? Like understanding, really putting the child's shoes on and understanding what it feels like, changing perspective from the teacher point.
Yes, yeah, it is. And there's a huge amount to being able to empathise. It's so much more complex. It's understanding the complexity of the person in front of you, and that, neurodivergence is not included in their modules. How are they expected to regulate and support and stay regulated in a classroom if it's not taught to them first? And so often it's left to teachers to scramble and find themselves in that desperate situation of, I don't know what to do here. They may get support. Some schools are fantastic at evolving and being alternative in their approaches and therapeutic in their approaches, but Many schools are not. And it is that belief of we need a curriculum to be delivered here. We have a timeline that we have to work to, and that puts pressure on the teachers. And so the modules that are really important, communication is another one. So what is being communicated and what your presence means in a classroom, because it's deeply important. It really matters. The teacher is the most important person in that room, and how their nervous system is so important in that room, because, communication is broken down, and we know that words matter, absolutely, but the tone and the voice is even more important. And then the nonverbal communication, the body language, and how it is expressed. Often if we ask somebody, how are you today? And they say, I'm fine. And they look down and they can't keep eye contact. You're going to read the body language and the tone that was used within that. You're not going to actually hear the word that was spoken. Whereas if someone looks up at you and says, I'm great today, you're reading the actual tone, you're reading the body language and the words, and it all collectively matters. So having an understanding of how to relate to the particular child in front of you is really important,
What would you do
So
in that situation? If you notice that you're asking the child, how are you today? And they go, what would you do next?
it can be really good to even just, as if anybody's familiar with Dan Siegel, name it to tame it. So you can actually just say what you see. Like, it really, keep it simple. And to say, oh, I seen that you looked down when I asked how you were, and I kind of felt a little bit sad when you said you were fine. I wonder how you're feeling. Do you really feel fine? Or do you feel a bit sad? And you're just naming what you see. And often a child will just open up. Actually, yeah, I do feel sad. But you're not telling them they feel sad. You're saying, I felt a bit sad when you did that. I wonder how you feel. And it's the connection. It's connecting with the children. Teachers in the classroom, are very overwhelmed with the level of needs that are presented in the room and the responsibility that's on them to get through their curriculum. And so it's understandable that it gets frustrating, and the interruptions, and the child that needs to move, and the child that can't stop talking. And then you've 5 different presentations or more in the classroom that teachers have to use, that kind of demanding approach of sit down, open your books, let's go, whatever it might be. I know not everybody uses the same approaches, but there's different ways to do it. And I think if we can be more therapeutic and creative in how we begin the school day, it will be incredible. And that begins with the teacher. I mean, it would be incredible to see in schools that teachers, when they come in, that they get a period of time before they start their class to actually take part in a grounding exercise, in taking time, not in the staff room. Boundaries is a big thing that I often see with teachers and in schools, where those negative conversations are taking place in the staff room about their experiences of dealing with a particular child, or, trying to figure out how to deal with that. And actually, that does not help. It actually doesn't help the situation. Your nervous system is now in a staff room full of nervous systems that are activated. And because they don't receive supervision, or they're not required to attend therapy for personal development, it all comes out. They've no other outlet. So it all comes out in the staff room. And often boundaries that I encourage teachers to have is that sometimes when it's really challenging and they're really trying to figure out a child and how best to connect with them or manage it, the situation that's presenting, they carry those conversations home with them. So they're actually not finished their school day when they finish their school day. They're having conversations at home because they're not getting debriefed in school. There is a real need for teachers to be supported more. And that's where my passion comes from. I see that teachers go in to teaching for the love of it, just like you spoke about. You went into it, you were doing it from when you were a little girl. You were role playing how you would love to teach all your little teddies. And you went and you trained, and then you went into the reality of the classroom and the system that you were working within, and your nervous system got totally triggered and you went into survival. And teachers are human. That's what's going to happen. They're going to be in their fight, flight, freeze responses. And depending on what that is, they get into the struggle with a little child. And depending on what that is, they will also regress back to a younger developmental age with the teacher themselves. And that's the age they're actually trying to teach from. And that can often be a 14-year-old. And now we have a 14-year-old run the show in the classroom. So this is an area of which I would like teachers to consider. That's looking at the profile of each of their children in their classrooms. You're going to have them for a whole year. Why not look at all of their profiles? Look at their sensory needs. Look at what information you have about them so far. Give yourself the first 6 weeks. Sit and review the profile that you've looked at and what you've learned about the child, what they need. And then look at creatively and therapeutically, how can that need be met in the classroom? And one of the things will be in a moment of where a child is dysregulated emotionally and developmentally, same thing. What age are they presenting as? So in that moment, if you think a child is acting like a 3-year-old, then most likely developmentally, that's the age they're regressing back to. And that's how they need you to approach them. So if you think of approaching a 3-year-old child compared to a 6-year-old child, your language is going to change. Your instructions are going to change. Your tone's going to change. The way you relate and connect is going to change. And it is, honestly, it is so effective. And what we're doing is facilitating the child to meet the developmental need that wasn't met at that age so that they can feel safe, they can feel heard and understood. And then they catch up with their chronological age. Then the problem gets resolved. But if we keep putting demands on the child who's presenting as 3, to be 6 in that moment, then you're going to continue to have the same issue throughout the whole year in your academic year.
This is amazing what you just shared. I want to unpack a lot of things that you said because I want to go a bit deeper because you said a lot of really amazing things. So we'll stay with these now. I'll go back to other things in relation to connection and morning routines. But what you said about the development, I can't say that word.
Developmental age, yeah.
Developmental age of the teacher as well, which is really interesting.
How old would you say you were in that moment, Maria?
When I was in the classroom with my hands in my pocket,
Yeah.
oh, I was definitely a young teenager where nobody would listen to me. Yeah. When I felt that nobody's listening to me. And actually, you spoke about the environment in the staff room as well. There was a very toxic environment in that school, and I had zero support. Actually, teachers embarrassed me in front of other children because I wasn't doing my job properly. And I was teaching music because I used to play the piano. So I was teaching music up to 6th class. They were taller than me and they weren't listening to me. And their teacher walked into the room and then she told me that I wasn't doing my job properly. So how, it was just the whole...
Just disempowered straight away.
Yeah. So that's what, yeah, I totally agree what you said about the importance of finding the right supportive environment for you as a person, as a human, not even as a teacher, as a human.
No, that's it. That's it.
Let go and go back to a healthier space.
Yeah. And in that moment when you were in that situation, what do you think you need? What did you need?
A hug.
A hug. Yeah. I'm human too.
Yeah, I think for me, what I've learned over the years is the power of pause. Just pause for a second, just stop with all the expectations. I need to do these, because that just kind of force things. And you have this plan in your head that this is what I'm doing today, and I have to do it regardless of
how I feel,
the
what's
energy
going
in the
on,
classroom or what's going on with me. And I'm going to have to do these whether you like it or not. And it's just pause, let go, connect. And that's one of the things I wanted to touch on. Do you think a lot of teachers think that you have to decide between control and connection? You can't
I think that is a misunderstanding. Yes. I think if some teachers, well, as we can imagine, if we're in a group of people, the initial thing is that if you're the leader in that classroom or in that particular group, you need to take control of that group. But there really are other ways, relational wise, in being able to be in control in a respectful, compassionate way. There really are, approaches that you can use that are inclusive of the people that are in that group, and often starting with, could you imagine starting your year with your teacher? And your teacher takes time out to connect with each and every child one-to-one and talks about what they value when they're teaching. I really value when you're able to sit and you're able to listen and I can get through the content, what I need to deliver. But it's really important to me to know what you need too. So what do you need? Now, I know we could be talking about older children here as well, but even with younger children, we can have these kind of conversations. Remembering a younger child's ego has not developed, and therefore it's all intuitive. They pick up on how, what you're feeling about them. It's not about, the words. It's how they feel when they're in your presence. That's the
What
information
does
they're
it
picking up
mean their
on.
ego has not developed yet? How does that show up in the class?
So often ego is there to guide us and lead us. And sometimes if we don't fully develop our ego, we can get into all sorts of different, being the experts and knowing, what's best all the time kind of thing. But an ego, when a child's ego is not developed, they don't have those barriers that adults have. They haven't developed yet. Those judgments and kind of expectations, they haven't developed. It's very simple to children. Be kind, be compassionate, be understanding, see me, make me feel like I belong and that I matter. Like we have basic needs as children and we need to know that we count, that we can contribute, that we're important, that what we have to say matters, and that you see us, and the connection and belonging and safety. Safety is everything. It begins with the teacher feeling safe and then it will begin and then it can, transition then into the children. And we know they're working in environments. Teachers are working in environments that often they don't feel safe in either. They don't feel heard. They don't feel seen. And so it's really bringing it back into your classroom, that uninterrupted space where all of that other stuff doesn't get to walk into your classroom. When it's you and your students, it's you and your students. You get to decide how you deliver your content and what comes into your classroom and what doesn't. And they really are the most important person in the room. And when they can captivate that, it really does, filter down into the students. So knowing that the children are really tuning into how you made them feel as opposed to what you told them, because your words are not congruent and not matching how you actually feel. So teachers do take disliking to certain children and behaviours that are coming up in the classroom. It's real, it happens, but we have to bring it back. What's that triggering in the teacher? And if the teacher only had the right supports and debrief and supervision and a safe space to be able to talk openly and honestly about what's just gone on, we would actually get through those pieces and be able to allow the teacher to feel seen and heard and connected and understood. And so when they're getting that, then they will give it to the children. And it's like you say, it's practicing in a way that children can see how we are acting, how we are behaving, and they do as they see. It's like the monkey see, monkey do. It's real,
Absolutely. And it sounds like teaching is a mirror to our own internal whatever is going on. It's what's triggering us. And actually, I was teaching Spanish recently and I was sharing I asked them to do something, conversation with their partners. And it was one of the children in the classroom, she was drawing a picture. And she said, no, I'm not doing that because I have to finish this picture. And I said, I think that can wait. If you don't do the Spanish part now, it's gone. You're not going to get another chance to do it. So it'd be great if you could do that. No, I'm doing this picture. And it was just, and I could sense how that trigger in me went, well, no, you're going to do what I'm telling you to do. And then I was like, oh, I don't know what to say. I don't want to turn this into a power. So then I went home. I was like, what could have been a good thing to say? And then I thought, I know, ask her about her picture. What are you drawing? What is this for? It's beautiful.
Important.
Okay, I'm going to tell you the colors you're using in Spanish. If what I want you to learn is Spanish, I'm going to tell you these things in Spanish. And it's bringing it to their world. But I only came when I went home. But that's because I was thinking about how can I make this something about connection, not about control.
And that's exactly it. And we talk about connection before correction.
Mm-hmm.
It's nervous system stuff we're talking about. It's not just language. It's real. If we connect, then we can, correct it in a way that can be heard. If we shout at a child, if we remove the picture from the child, I said we're doing Spanish. We need to do our Spanish now, which is often what happens. Let's be real, right? That child has gone into their fight, flight, freeze. We're all scanning for risk, for danger all day long. That's how we're made, right? And so when an incident like that happens, we shut down. And when we shut down, our brain disconnects from the ability to be able to self-regulate. And then we cannot access our higher thinking brain to learn. That's science. That's not down to a child being disrespectful or bold. That's neuroscience. And in order to keep them connected, it's to be regulated. It's to connect with them. And as you say, how beautiful would that be, Maria, if it was done that way? Tell me about your picture. It's clearly really important to you to do
Yeah,
that picture. Tell me more. And you're connected straight away. And the thing about it is that it is simple. It is quite simple. That change in approach from being demanding to working in collaboration with a child
absolutely.
through
And it creates
connection.
so much respect from the child because she
Absolutely.
sees me, she hears me, and I feel like I want to respect this teacher. I want to take part in what she's asking me to do. I feel emotionally connected to this
Yes.
person, and then I don't have to ask her next time. She's actually going to
And
be
that
so
is such a great
understandable.
point for teachers. If teachers are able to tune into how they feel when they're connecting with a child, I promise you the child is feeling the same way. So if you're feeling really irritated and overwhelmed with whatever is presenting with the child as you're dealing with them, I promise you they're feeling the same way. They're feeling that overwhelm. They're feeling that frustration. So when you come back to what you need and you give it to yourself, so putting in rituals in your practice day, if you don't get debriefed, have a process diary, have a bit of a diary that you can actually just really write out. We don't need to use names. We can still protect confidentiality. It's for your own personal process of what has just come up in your classroom. What is it that you are finding so difficult with this child? And then remember a time when you felt that way yourself. Because when we work with parents, we're often looking at what's the child looking for? Are they looking for attention or are they looking for control? If they're looking for attention, give it to them without them asking for it. Yeah, give them praise. Drop little seeds of, I can see how well you're doing. And it might be a second, a moment that they've given you out of a whole day of all sorts of everything else. But we know when we get praised when we're younger, we will want to do better. You know, if we're shamed and excluded, then we will act out. We will struggle and get into that conflict of wanting you to see our potential if you're shaming me. So traffic light systems, pairs of isolation, get out of the classroom, I'm sick of you. The language that's used, these kind of things do happen. And they're shaming, yeah? So if you have a child, say, in your classroom and they're not able to sit and listen and concentrate and it's really disrupting your learning of the day, it would be so much more effective to be able to connect with that child for a moment. I can see it's really difficult for you to concentrate at the moment. Yeah, what can we do? Would you like to take 10 minutes out? Or have you got like a fidget toy that you'd like to actually take out of your bag? Would you like to put your head down for 5 minutes? But the tone is important, you know, so it needs to be congruent, warm. It needs to speak safety. You matter. How can I help? Not rejection. Get out, you know, that's enough. Shut down. You're going in the red. You know, you're going down to the principal's office. I really wish that was removed. And the principal's office became the most therapeutic space a child can actually enter into. And creativity is what is at the core of, you know, every conversation that starts at the principal's room. Connection and creativity. Let's embrace the hero within the child. Like they all have the capability. We don't know what they're coming from. And if you're shutting down that in thinking that if you shame them or tell them how disruptive they are, how disrespectful they've been, that's actually going to, you know, encourage them to engage more or to do better, you couldn't be further from reality.
But can you imagine, Yvonne, us in work and our supervisor telling us, go straight to the manager's office, they need to talk to you and we're sending you home. You know, things like that.
You're in the red.
Yeah.
You're in the red.
Yeah, and have this big board there where we can put all the worst employees of the month for everybody to see, or how you missed this task or this whatever call, whatever it is, for everybody
Yeah.
to see what you did wrong or didn't do, rather than, as you were saying, empowering all the good things you did, because then you feel so good about yourself, you want to do more of it.
What's the goals? What's the goals? My God, you did so well with this week. Give them what they did well first.
Yeah.
I've seen that you've struggled with this week. What do you think you struggled with this week? You can do that in a whole class together. What did you struggle with this week? What would you like to do differently next week? When a child is trying to communicate, they're communicating through their behaviour. Our first language is play. We learn through play. We begin with peekaboo. throwing the bottle out of the pram, seeing that someone returns it. Our first language is play. And when we are playful, that's creating safety because it's what we understand, right? So when children are going through, it's the same as adults. I often say this, like, but as a play therapist, it's a incredible therapy, and it doesn't require words. Children come in and play out what they are experiencing in their lives, and it's the subconscious, okay? But adults are the same. They often don't have the words to put on the level of emotion or complexity of the emotions that they're feeling about a particular something, right? They can't actually put words on it because it's so overwhelming. Children are the same. They can't put words on things to articulate to you so you can understand how they're feeling, but they can show you. They can kick the children around them. They can run out of the school, out of the classroom. They can keep messing to get your attention. They can keep disrespecting you because actually they kind of feel you haven't put too much effort into your lessons in the first place and that you should be respecting them more by doing more. Like, there's all sorts of ways it presents.
This episode is proudly sponsored by Little Vista, a childcare software solution designed specifically for the Irish early years sector. If you're an early years educator, manager, or service provider, you'll know how much time can be spent on paperwork, administration, compliance, communication. Little Vista helps simplify those processes, giving you more time to focus on what matters most, the children. From managing administration and observations to tracking learning and development and keeping parents connected through their family app, Little Vista brings everything together in one easy-to-use platform. What I love most about Little Vista is that their mission goes beyond software. Like us, they are passionate about supporting educators, reducing overwhelm, and creating meaningful experiences for children and families. To learn more about Little Vista and how they support early years settings across Ireland, visit littlevista.ie. And now, let's get back to today's episode.
So sometimes saying when a child is showing you true behaviour in their communication because they don't have the words to tell you, when they are expressing it through a behaviour, you can say things like, show me another way. I can see you're trying to tell me something, show me another way. Because we can't hit Harry in the playground. Show me another way. How else can we do that? Right? There's different ways that you can invite them to do it. And containing children is important. But when a child is acting out, right, what they need, this is where the modules and the teacher training is so important. I would have had a case where a child was a flight risk in the school, is how they saw him. But actually, really, when you knew about attachment and you knew about developmental ages and neuroscience, fight, flight, freeze responses, I was able to obviously look at the child, knowing some of the background, which teachers won't know, identifying this is his attachment that he's playing out. So it is incredibly overwhelming. It's scary and he doesn't know what else to do. So unless there is an option for him to be contained when he arrives on the yard in a small little group of another 2 or 3 children, facilitated by a teacher that's available, an SNA or a resource teacher who's able to be with them in that moment and transition them from the care that he has arrived with into this big, huge environment where he doesn't feel safe and he can't predict. When we can actually bring that back down to being predictable and safe and warm and contained, the flight risk was removed. The child was able to transition into school, and transitions are really important. And it's often something that's overlooked. So even going from one subject to another in the classroom and asking abruptly for children to close down something that they've really enjoyed. No, we're all done now and we just have to get up and get on with it and move to the next thing without a transitional piece or a little moment to, we've 5 minutes left of this subject and then we're going to move into that subject, or have a break in between your subjects where you connect and you create spaces for connection throughout the day and free play. Just free, do whatever it is you need to do. Put your head down, draw a picture, connect with your friend, go play with it. If fidget, come talk to me. Come talk to me. For the teacher to have that as an option. But they have to create these spaces throughout their day. They're ultimately what you're doing is you're creating a rhythm in your day. You're looking at boundaries, you're looking at rituals, you're looking at transitions. That creates a rhythm in your day. Yeah. And when we think about rhythm, we go back to the heartbeat in the womb. Rhythm is important. Don't underestimate it. When we look at the power of music, bringing music into a classroom for regulation, we know that even at the later stages of life, when people have dementia and they can't remember someone's name and they don't remember things about their whole life, yet you put on their favorite song and they'll sing every word. It activates a part of the brain that recalls information. It stimulates a part of our brain that is joy, that is expressive and
That,
safe.
that's so interesting. I was playing music from 2000s this morning in Spanish, and the song came up, and I started singing. I was like, how do I know this song?
Yeah,
Like, that's taking up space in my brain that I don't need.
yeah, yeah.
And no wonder I can't remember anything else. It's all that space, but that's so so true. And I was just thinking as you were speaking the last part, if I was a principal, I'd like to have maybe kind of like the focus of the month, for example, because I think that's everything you're talking about. It's like creating new habits in your teaching practice.
Yeah,
And I think if I was a teacher listening to this conversation, for everything you say, I'd come up with an excuse to justify myself to
that's
why
right.
I'm not doing that because
That's
I have
right.
to do this. I'm not doing that. Yeah, it's easy for you because you're sitting there recording a podcast. But when you're in the classroom doing this, I'm not doing that because. So I think one way to make it a little bit easier would be introducing maybe the focus of the month or little habits to start focusing on different aspects to start changing the way you do it. Not everything at once. That's not going to work. That's just even adding more things. But it's about reshaping how you do things. So it's not adding more work. It's just reshaping the way you do things one at a time. So, for example, okay, this month we're focusing on adding a little bit more playfulness in your activities. Next month, we're going to focus on transitions. Okay, so every day, and then in the staff room, same as the kids, you praise them for for the positive things they did. So, same in the staff room. Okay, what did you change in your transitions? And let's inspire each other. Let's see who made the best changes or the changes that brought the biggest impact, the most positive impact. And then other teachers can try that out as well and feel inspired by what you're doing in your classroom. And then another month, maybe on that morning routine and rituals. So then
Mhm.
share what brought the most connection with my students, what moments did bring more understanding for me about how they're getting on in their life. Or so I
Yeah,
think that would be a really nice way.
absolutely. And when I'm hearing you saying that as well, it reminds me sometimes parents who are working, like we have to remember teachers, if teachers only knew the role that they play in a child's life. Like to me, teachers are one of the most important people in a child's life. When we look at parents, right? So often teachers spend more time with children than their actual parents do in some cases. Okay. So when we're looking at early years right through, some children in early years are in for 9 hours when a parent may only work 8 hours, say, in a day, but their child has to be in this place for 9 hours. So when we're building attachment, it's occurring with their teacher. So the teachers are so important. And we were looking at when parents, that when we then say, oh, parents, you need to spend half an hour a day playing with your children. Yeah, just playing. But yet they've only got 3 hours maybe in the evening when they finish work and get home. They're into dinner, shower routine, silly hours, and then they're being asked to connect with their child. It's the same as a teacher in the classroom. We don't need to bring in extra things to do. You can make what you do matter. You can bring in and be creative and playful in the things that you're already doing. It's not asking you to do more. And I think that's where there's a big misconception. Like for parents, I often say, bath time, make it playful rather than going and cleaning the bathroom or folding the towels. Actually use it as a time to connect and be present in those moments with the younger children. It might be mealtime with older children. Um, there's so much that we could talk about, really and truly. But within the classroom, teachers can get creative around almost integrating those creative, playful approaches into what they have to achieve themselves in the curriculum. So everybody's getting what they need.
Yeah,
It's
and
not about
especially
asking
now
them to do more.
with AI, you can just put what you need to teach,
Mhm.
and that's how you use it in a positive way. I need to teach about this topic. How do I make it playful? And, you can share a few examples of challenges you have in the classroom, and I'll give you ideas to add more variety, early finishers, activities related to the topic, turning it into a game, into a movement break, into an outdoor adventure. Like
Yes.
literally, let's use it for what
Yeah.
really matters. And
Yeah.
it's that tool is there for a reason. So I think this is the only positive way I can find to this tool that we have today.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Uh, you shared also an activity, a morning activity, or as is it the box? You put messages in a box to
Oh,
communicate
yeah.
with your children. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, and it is really effective as well. And that's having a box in your classroom where you can ask the children, "What is it that you'd like me to know about you? What is something you would like me to know about you?" And they can share all sorts of different things. They might share that they're really tired this week, or that they are really good at something that you're not aware of, or that my mum was in hospital all week this week, but you didn't know. So you can get all sorts of different pieces of information around it. They don't need to write their names on it either. You can do it whatever way you like. It's more safe when they're able to just pop it into the box, and then you get to read it, and obviously connect with the child in some way. And you can do a broader connection with them as well. Say all of these different things came up. And I was so glad that you were able to share and let me know what had happened for you that week that I didn't know about, because I wouldn't know.
Yeah,
The other one is around, what is the one thing you'd like to tell your teacher? It's said in a slightly different way. It's asked in a slightly different way. And often what comes back is what they think about you or what they like about you. And it can be really nice for the teacher, but also for the kids, because you just don't get that opportunity to express the things that you appreciate,
that's
you
really
know?
nice. And it could go both ways, I suppose, as well. The teacher can do it for
Yeah,
the students as well. Just it creates a really
absolutely.
positive environment in the classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's that gorgeous connection again, but it's not to take away from the reality of teachers are just so overwhelmed and they are going to experience burnout. I just don't want to come across as if we're not aware of this, that the overwhelm, shortage of staff and resources within the schools, the expectations on them and what they need to manage within their classrooms without the support, if they don't have someone that they can debrief with, and by just being able to talk about their day before they leave and transition into being a wife or a mammy in their own lives, it's going to feed into their family homes. It is absolutely going to be brought home with them. There's containment and boundaries needed for supporting teachers to be able to do it this way. And we need to value, you know, what they bring. We need to value SNAs, right? SNAs are often not even included in parent teacher meetings. They're one of the most important people. In one of the cases I would have worked with, when I came in, so I facilitate conversations. I come in and work with the teaching staff that might be working with the child who is presenting with difficulties. And I help them understand it. But I come from a place where I want to know how they are first. I don't come in to talk about the child initially. What comes up for you when you're with that child? What is your biggest fear in that moment with that child? And then let's look at how we can actually make it safe for you and for the child. Let's look at approaches that can work for you and for the child. And there's so much fear sometimes for teachers of making the wrong statements by getting into conversations that maybe are personal, that they're trying not to. Yet this child is trying to express to somebody, please hear me. And then there's this wall of, but I can't. So there was an SNA that was working with the child, and he wanted to speak to her about, an occurrence that had happened at home. And she just changed the subject because she thought, I don't know if I should do that. Is that okay for me to do? And I thought, oh my God, like SNAs are the safest thing in the school, the safest thing, as in for the child.
Yeah.
You are the nervous system regulator. So that is the biggest, most important safety for a child, let's say. And if they go to share something with you, it's not always going to be a disclosure. It might just be, in this particular situation, it was that the other parent had met somebody new and had brought that somebody new into the house and they'd all had pizza together. And he really just wanted to share it with somebody to say how nice it was, but he hadn't had the chance to be able to share that with anybody. He was carrying that experience and a new experience of somebody new coming into their little, it was just the two of them up until that point. It's a huge
It's
life
so important.
experience.
Yeah, and you shared an example as well earlier about what do you want me to know about you, and said maybe you shared as an example, oh, my mom was in hospital all week. But now I'm going back to that example I shared when I was teaching Spanish, and this child was drawing a picture. And like, imagine that was the case, and her mom had been in hospital all week, and she was really worried, really concerned, really sad, and scared. And drawing that picture was her way out of, regulating.
Externalizing it
And then I
and
take it
having it
away
being
from her
seen.
and I give out to her. What am I doing to that child? And it goes down to priorities then.
It
What
doesn't
am I
matter.
here for? Who cares about the curriculum right now? This child needs safety. At the end of the day, we only live once. Life is too short and we're here for a good time. So let's make it safe. Let's make it fun. Let's make it good. For
Yes.
me,
Yeah.
that's all that matters.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
You
then the
know,
other thing you shared as well about the episode, I 100% agree that we empathize with the teachers. And what I think is this episode, we want this episode to be a permission for teachers to pause, to connect, and to bring that spark back to their teaching, to make it
yes.
fun for everybody.
Think about what you need right now. Why did you become a teacher? What brought you there? And are you doing it in the way that you really wanted to? And if not, why not? And what is it that you need? And how can you make that happen? What is it that you need to bring in to make that happen? And I know expectations of teachers. I know there can be a huge conflict around this. It's like we're there to teach. There's this conflict around, well, what's the parent's responsibility and what's the teacher's responsibility? But actually, if we just connect back to humanity and connection, and that we are actually forming, we are actually supporting a child to develop on all levels, regardless of whether you're a parent or a teacher. You're both hugely important in the child's life, forever and a day. Forever and a day, a teacher's words become a child's inner voice for a lifetime. So what is that going to be for you as a teacher? What would you like that inner voice to be for that particular child? Because it will impact the rest of their days. We hear from adults who share their stories of, I was told I wasn't good enough. I was told I'd never become anything. And we're not saying that. Obviously, Jeannie, I had experiences in school where I had an incredible teacher. And it is about us remembering that person that was incredible for us in our school days and becoming that. Integrate that into what your practice and how you practice as a teacher, I suppose. But like I would have had a teacher that was, who seen me. She saw me. She accepted me. She heard me. And as a result of that, she inspired me without doing a whole lot. She really did. By me looking at how she was in her role, despite all the challenges she had around her, she stayed anchored in how she believed in her own beliefs and values around teaching. So looking at what are your beliefs and values around teaching? And what are your fears? Because often it's the fearful stuff that's driving how you teach, but it's not intentional. It's not what you mean to do. So look at what your beliefs and values are. Look at why you're in the role that you're in today and then see how you can do it differently. But I think, looking at the sensory profile of children is really where we need to come back to as well, because the teachers' nervous systems are getting activated by the activated nervous systems in the playroom. And it's how do you co-regulate? Like I spoke to a teacher recently, she's only recently trained, and I'd often put out some social media and I'll invite teachers to come connect with me. I love having brief conversations with teachers to unpack some of this stuff, just to get them started as to where they can begin when they're really, really struggling. And I had a recently trained teacher who said, even now, we don't get any of that in our training when we're training to be teachers. And I just sat in that with her just for a moment to think what that must be like for her and the misconception of how the external world believes teachers are trained and the expectation of the external world on teachers to be able to manage everything and anything that's thrown at them. That's not true.
But yet, when you say you've studied to become a primary school teacher, what I used to get was you just did colouring all day in college.
Yeah.
And I also know all of these I got trained in parenting, I got trained in medicine, I got trained in law, I got trained in therapy. I got all these degrees in one primary school teaching degree while just coloring all day.
Yes. Yeah.
How?
Yeah. You
It's
know,
expectations, yeah.
it's expectations. It's actually the knowledge. Like I would imagine if I spoke to a lot of parents to say, well, what do you think teachers actually, what is their training involved? They wouldn't know, but they'd assume it's all of these other things. Do you know what I mean? And so we know we have this battle going on, and I'd love to see parents and teachers working collaboratively more, and not have that between them of, well, what are you doing in there that's creating that? Well, what are you doing at home that's not creating the child I need in the classroom kind of thing. Instead, what are we looking at here? What's needed? What can I do to support in the classroom? Well, what can I do to support at home so that you can get what you need? Um, it will be a much more effective relationship to build. And it's proven too that when parents are more involved in the school or have a relationship with the school, teacher, principal in general, the child will actually progress a lot more, and they will have a positive experience of their education. But when parents are at home going, that teacher and that school and that's getting internalized by the child. So we have to be aware of these things. It's all around, there's a lot around awareness, isn't there?
Absolutely, yeah. And taking responsibility.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And children will see that. It's part of the bigger picture, I think.
yeah,
But it's like when parents divorce and then you blame each other because you're doing it, but you're supposed to bring this uniform with you. But you're it's like,
yeah,
who cares? It's about the child. It's not about us right now. And it's
yeah,
a very fine line. So,
yeah.
but I think, as you said, the importance of just, it's the simple things. It's not adding more work. It's
Oh,
bring it back down to basics. It's pause, it's
yeah.
connect, it's reflect, it's let the experience teach you about yourself. What
Yes.
are your triggers? What brings you the spark? I'm learning about glimmers now. I discovered this glimmers thing. It's the opposite of triggers. Triggers is something that
Yeah.
creates something in you that's more negative energy. It reminds you of something in the past and brings up all these uncomfortable emotions. A glimmer is that little moment of joy. So noticing these glimmers in the classroom when a child wants to share something with you, "Oh, they trust me. They want to share this with me because they trust me." Or, shows you something because they want to share something really positive with you. You only want to share good things with people you care about.
That's
So when a
it.
child does that to you, it's just noticing these things, and then there's no way that's not going to bring more connection with your children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And no, every child really and truly wants to do their best. Every child is trying to do their best. They want to be the best version of themselves. When that teacher came to me recently, just bringing in, like, she had the biggest heart. She was trying to bring in all these different things, but actually they were too overwhelming for the child that she was actually supporting at the time. So, bringing in, a calm corner with a tent, bringing in some sensory regulation toys, boards. But the child was sensory seeking different things that between climbing and more impact is what they were looking for. These things became unsafe in the classroom. And she was just like, what do I do now? I'm doing all the right things that I think I should be doing, but what do I do now? And it's like, no, trust your intuition. Trust what you know. So if it's unsafe now, we know that that's unsafe. It needs to be removed. And what's next? What's the other thing that you can bring in? What's the child showing you? Because the child is showing you all the time what they need. Like they are actually communicating all the time what they need. And it was just sitting with the teacher to unpack. What do you notice is presenting? What are the needs? Okay, what do you think you could bring in there? How can we bring in containment? So sometimes they were fearful. There were moments where she was fearful of bringing in the containment and the boundary. But actually, the child was screaming out for her to put containment and boundaries in. And that can be done in a very gentle way and a compassionate way. So it's unpacking, exploring, unpacking, and discovering all the time. Like parents, we can't parent the same throughout someone's lifetime because they grow, they develop, they change. We have to grow, we have to develop, we have to change. As parents, as teachers, anybody that is there influencing the development of another person needs to be aware that it's going to change. We don't just find one way and that's going to fit everybody. We don't just find one way and that's going to last forever. It just doesn't work that way. And if we can open up to being more flexible and fluid around how we actually are as those safe adults, particularly for children, the more effective we can be.
I think that would reduce a lot of overwhelm. And
Mhm.
I speak for myself as well in my own parenting and life. If I could just get in my head that I'm not going to find the master system of parenting and then it's going to work for the rest of my life and that's me
No,
done.
no,
No, it's
yeah,
like, okay, that worked today, but it's like my child loves bananas today, and then tomorrow is like, Mommy, I'm allergic to bananas. Ew. I'm like, but
yeah,
you love them. So it's just like being really, really taken in and understanding that, okay, that worked today, but see what
yeah,
happens. Just be open to learn every day and be curious. Okay, what's going to happen today? What are we going to learn about each other?
yeah, absolutely. And we want to develop their autonomy.
Mm,
So sometimes we can contradict ourselves. We want children to be more responsible. We want them to be able to make decisions and choices and better choices, you know and then we don't give them the autonomy to do that. We take it away from them. So it's building that as well and giving them the autonomy. Choice is always great. If a child is looking for control, give them choice. You can do A or you can do B. Which will it be? Or you have a good choice or a bad choice. What do you think the good choice would be? What do you think the bad choices it will be? What would the outcome of those be? I mean, these are things, life skills that you would develop with children daily that can be used in your classroom that will stand to them for life.
yeah.
That will stand to them through all of your lessons, tread through all of the lessons. Good choice, bad choice. What is it? What are our choices right now?
Life
If you
skills, that's huge. Yeah, and actually, I'll go back to that example with the picture in Spanish, but that's what got me through it because I thought, okay, she's not going to learn any Spanish, but I'm very proud of her decision making and her autonomy and telling
Yeah,
me she knows what she wants
she knows what she
and she is
needs.
driven and she's like, fair play to you. Go draw your picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's down to priorities. So anybody listening now and saying, okay, Yvonne, I'm ready. I'm going to embrace this. I'm ready. I want to make a few changes. I want to enjoy my teaching more. I want my children to have a more meaningful experience in the classroom. What's the first thing I need to do? I'm going to start with one thing. What's that one thing?
I think it's bringing it back to you yourself. What's your beliefs and values of teaching? What is it that you want to harness within your classroom? Forget everything else and then begin there and how you can be creative and teach from your heart space. Teach from a place where you can go in and be happy in your job every day and that you are looking at another way all of the time. It's not a failure. It's not you're not good enough. It's not that you can't do this. There's always another way. But give yourself permission to step away from the perfectionism, the performing, just the academic curriculum and look at how you can be creative in what lights you up. Because once you are lit up in what you do, it's contagious.
Everything follows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Children will remember how you made them feel, not what you said to them, not what you taught them. They'll remember how you made them feel. So who doesn't want to go in and enjoy their job? It's the worst place to be when you're going in and it's just stressful every day. There is another way. And you do, as a teacher, you do have another choice. So what are your choices?
I
And
love that. You
choose what
choose.
works.
Yes, you got the power.
Absolutely.
Literally,
Yeah.
on power. That is so empowering, so inspiring, and it really does bring a lot of hope that, there is a better way, there is another choice,
Yeah.
and there is a more connected, joyful way of being in the classroom
Absolutely.
where we have to be so many hours, so we might as well enjoy it.
Absolutely. And teachers, you deeply matter.
Hmm.
You deeply matter to the children in the room.
You're their superheroes, so
Yeah.
let's use your superpowers.
Absolutely.
So empowering.
That's it.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. That was amazing.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Maria. And best of luck to everybody.
We got you. We got you.
Be creative.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Rediscovering Childhood. If today's conversation made you pause, reflect, or rethink something about childhood education, parenting, or the way we support children, I'd love if you could help us continue spreading these important conversations. You can support the podcast by following or subscribing, leaving a review, sharing this episode with a friend, colleague, parent, or teacher, or even posting your biggest takeaway on social media and tagging us Rediscovering Childhood. Every share helps more people rediscover what children truly need to thrive, and together we can create a better future for the next generation. See you next week for another meaningful conversation.